Hello and welcome back. This is another sixth grade math video, and this video is focusing on dividing mixed numbers and fractions. Okay, here is our first one we're going to do. We're going to take 1 1/5 and we're going to divide it by 2/3. Okay, so we are going to use a method called keep, change, flip, which you may be familiar with if you watched my previous video on dividing fractions, but we need to do something first because we have a mixed number. In fact, I'm going to rewrite that mixed number so that the fractions and the numerator and the denominator of the fraction are right on top of each other. So the 1 1/5 divided by 2/3. So now before we start dividing or before we use keep, change, flip, what I want to do is turn that mixed number 1 1/5 to its improper fraction form. To do that, I'm going to keep it over 5. So I'll keep the denominator the same. But to find the new numerator that goes up there, I would need to take the denominator, multiply it by the whole number, and add the numerator that's already there. That means I'm going to do 5 times 1, which is 5, and then add 1, which is 6. So if you're not sure why I did that or how I did that, check out another previous video I did on converting mixed numbers to improper fractions. So what we're really doing here is 6/5 divided by 2/3. Now comes the keep, change, flip part. That means I'm keeping 6/5 the same. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. I'm changing from division to multiplication. I'm going to change that. And then I'm going to flip the second fraction around so that it is 3/2 instead of 2/3. Now what I need to do is multiply my numerators. So 6 times 3 is 18. And then 5 times 2 is 10. Now I need to change that back into a mixed number. So I can either simplify it first before I do that, or I could do that and then simplify. I think this one I'm going to simplify first, since I noticed both 18 and 10 are even numbers, which means they can both be divided by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to simplify this fraction. 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now that's actually a little bit easier to turn into a mixed number, because 5 fits into 9 one time, and I would have 4 left over. And again, if you're not really sure how I did that, I also have a previous video on converting improper fractions to mixed numbers. So our final answer here is going to be 1 4/5, or 4/5. Okay, here is our next one. It's 1 1/2 divided by 1 1/2. Okay, so now you may have noticed, or you may remember the rule that any number divided by that same number is equal to 1. So if you remember that rule, you might already know the answer to this. But let's walk through it just to see those steps in case you forgot that rule or didn't realize that this rule applied. So I need to turn both those mixed numbers to improper fractions before I do this. That means I'm going to keep them both over 2 because they both have a denominator of 2. I'm going to take 2 and multiply it by the whole number and add the number that's already on top. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So since they're the same number, I'm just going to go ahead and write 3/2 here, and that's what we're dividing. So we're going to do keep, change, flip. What that means is I keep the first fraction the same. I change from division to multiplication, and then I flip the second fraction around so that it is 2/3. Now I need to multiply my numerators. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 3 is also 6, and 6/6 is equal to 1 whole. So either way, the answer for this should be 1. Okay, here is our next one. We have 2 5/6, and we're going to divide it by 1 2/3. So I have 2 5/6 here, divided by 1 2/3 here. Now I need to change them both to improper fractions before I do any calculating. So for the first mixed number, I'm going to keep it with a denominator of 6. To find the numerator, I'm going to multiply the denominator times the whole number and then add the numerator that's already there. So 6 times 2 is 12, and 12 plus 5 is 17. So that would be 17/6. Keeping the division symbol for now, keeping 3 as the denominator, but I need to do 3 times 1 plus 2 to get that new numerator. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 would be 5. So these are the two improper fractions I'm dividing. Now I can use keep, change, flip. So I'm keeping 17 over 6 the same, changing from division to multiplication, and flipping this second fraction around so that it is 3 over 5. Now to complete the answer, I need to do 17 times 3 or multiply the numerators. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I end up with 51 over 30. Okay, now this doesn't quite look like it can be simplified. However, I think that it can because they're not even numbers on the top and the bottom, but 51 can be divided by 3 and so can 30. The way that I know that 51 can be divided by 3 is because if you add 5 plus 1, you get 6, and 6 can be divided by 3. So that means I'm going to divide both of these by 3 to get a simplified improper fraction. 51 divided by 3 is 17. And I knew that because we did 17 times 3 to get 51. And then 30 divided by 3 is 10. So now that's a little bit easier to turn into a mixed number. 10 fits into 17 one time, and there would be 7 left over. So the answer to this would be 1 7/10. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to take 4/5 and divide it by 2 2/3. So I've got 4/5 here divided by 2 2/3. So before I do any keeping, changing, or flipping, I'm going to turn 2 2/3 into its improper fraction form. So that means I need to keep 3 as the denominator, multiply 3 times 2, and then add the 2 that's on the top. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 2 is 8. So this is 8/3. I'm just going to bring down the 4/5 and the division symbol. Now I can keep, change, flip by keeping 4/5 the same, changing from division to multiplication, and flipping the second fraction around so that it is 3 over 8. What that gives us is 4 times 3, which is 12, and 5 times 8, which is 40. Now, both of those are even numbers, which means that I can divide both 12 and 40 by 2. So I can simplify this. If I divide this by 2 and this by 2, 4 divided by 2 is 6, and 40 divided by 2 is 20. And again, I'm left with some even numbers, so I know I can divide it by 2 again. I'm going to divide this by 2 and this by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. So after the simplifying, we have a proper fraction. So we don't need to do anything where we're changing it into a mixed number. So the final answer to this would be 3 over 10. Okay, here is our last example for today's video. We're going to take 8 over 9, and I'm going to rewrite that here, and divide it by 1 and 1 over 7. So before I do keep, change, flip, I'm going to turn that 1 and 1/7 to its improper fraction form. That means it's going to stay over 7, but I need to multiply 7 times 1 and add the 1 at the top. So 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So this is 8/7. So what we're really doing is taking 8/9 and dividing it by 8/7. Now I can use keep, change, flip. So I can keep that 8 over 9 the same, change from dividing to multiplication, and flip this second fraction around so that it is 7 over 8. Well, 8 times 7 is 56. 9 times 8 is 72. Now I'm probably looking to simplify. I do notice that both 56 and 72 are even numbers, so I know I could divide them by 2 to simplify. Another thing I could do is I notice they both have 8 as a factor. There's an 8 right here and an 8 right here for both of those numbers. So if they both have 8 as a factor, that means I can also divide both of them by 8. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to simplify. Divide this by 8 and divide this by 8. And what that gives me is 7/9. And again, that is a proper fraction, so I do not need to change it to a mixed number. And that can be our final answer, 7/9. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope to see you in another video soon.